we're all on a journey. And if you're starting to notice, okay, I need to make a few adjustments and I don't really know what I'm doing, that's okay. And you're not alone in this. If you think, okay, I need to make a few adjustments or I don't really know what I stand for, don't look to the right and don't look to the left, but look at yourself and ask those questions. Maybe ask it in your quiet time with God. Ask Him those questions. Okay, God, what is it that you've placed on my life? And what do you want to do with my business? Look at yourself and not to other people, because I know comparison can creep in and it can make you feel like, oh, I'm not as far ahead as everyone else, or I should be further ahead. But that's not helpful. Looking at yourself, looking at your identity before God, that's going to be the core of everything. Don't compare yourself and take your time with God and then just really answer those questions from your heart.
Hey Masterpiece Makers, in this episode we're diving into what happens when you build a brand that doesn't truly reflect who you are, and why that kind of misalignment leaves so many entrepreneurs feeling stuck, burnt out, and losing momentum. Instead of building a profitable business, you end up pouring your time and energy into fighting overwhelm, imposter syndrome, confusion, misalignment, burnout, and inconsistency. Sounds rough, right? Let's be honest, most of us have felt this at some point on our entrepreneurial journey. I've definitely had my fair share of that chaos too. Today, I'm sitting down with someone I personally admire, not just as a designer, but as a creative thinker and a woman of faith and a good friend. We're talking with Mirjana Mandl, a brand designer based in Munich, Germany. I get very excited when I get to connect with fellow Kingdom creatives who share the same heart and passion for our craft. And let's face it, branding and marketing today is noisy and ridiculously overwhelming. It's rare to find someone who truly understands what it means to build brands with purpose, excellence, and grace. And that's why I wanted you guys to meet Mirjana, because she's not just another designer. She's someone who deeply believes in authenticity, creativity, and alignment. She helps brands reflect who you really are, not just what you do. I've had the privilege of seeing her grow, starting from her internship days in Cape Town to now serving various clients across Europe. Her work is thoughtful, intentional, and anchored in purpose. In this conversation, we'll explore her journey of becoming a designer, how she blends faith and creativity, and what it really means to lead with integrity in the branding world. So whether you're a startup founder, still finding your voice, or just someone trying to stay true to who you are in a loud and crowded world, this episode is for you. So let's dive in. I'm your host, Norbert Elnar, and on this show, we're passionate about building your faith and inspiring your business. Welcome to the Making a Masterpiece podcast. Welcome to the Making a Masterpiece podcast, Mirjana Mandl. How are you, Miri?
Thanks, I'm good. How are you?
I am very well. How is Bavaria doing?
It's good. At the moment it's rainy, so we're not in summer yet, but working on it.
Yeah, summer is coming. We are hanging in there. Mirjana, let's dive deep into our topic today. Let's talk about something I think a lot of entrepreneurs quietly struggle with. This is the disconnection between who they are and how their brand shows up, whatever platform that is. That feeling that their brand doesn't really showcase their real self. I've seen people spend so much time and money on their logo, on their website, on their social media marketing, and the list goes on, right? But in the end, it still feels fake or some sort of disconnected. Why do you think it's so hard for entrepreneurs to express who they really are through their brand? And what happens if they don't deal with this gap?
Yeah, this is a very common problem, and I'd be lying if I'd say I didn't have that problem myself, because as an entrepreneur, you obviously have a lot of ideas and you want to get started. So you usually just go for a logo at first because you want to get out there. But I think the big problem in there is that most of the people start with something visual before they know who they actually are. So that disconnection between your visual and your identity, that's a huge gap that I see very often. And usually what that results into is a brand that might be seen, but it doesn't really have an essence or a depth like to it. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs have that because they never really look at who they are at first. So do you know who you are? Do you know what you stand for? Do you know why you're doing what you're doing? And not just, is your logo pretty? I'd say that's a common problem for a lot of people. And I'd also say that if you know what the core of your brand is, then you can much more easily express it on the outside. So I'd say if you don't look at the core of your brand, you will have a lot of unclarity, and people from the outside looking at you, they might see your logo or your website, but they don't really know what you stand for. Yeah, this is a huge gap I see often, and I've been there myself. So I'd say just go for the first step and look at your identity and who you are.
Yeah, that's really the thing, right? I know we both are passionate about brands and we do design a lot of logos, but I think I also get that question a lot when people just normally come to me with a logo. But I think just so that our listeners can also understand this, like when you talk about core, when you mentioned that your brand can be seen without essence, and you mentioned about the core, what does that really mean? Because I'm sure you also probably had the same experience that when you talk to business owners or personal brands, they think that the core is the product, that they're selling a coaching business, for example, or they're selling this and that. They automatically equate their product as their core. What can you say to that? Is that really what you mean?
No, I'd say the core of your brand is why you are doing what you're doing and how you are doing it. So I usually use that framework. It's a very common framework when it comes to working with brands, and it's called the why, how, what. So you have those 3 steps, and usually brands start with what, but that's the 3rd step. So you first look at why are you actually running your business? What's your goal? Where do you want to go? And what is the heart behind all of that? And then you look at how you do it. So if you have a goal and if you have a heart for your business, then you usually have a way of doing something and things you might not be doing because they wouldn't match with why you're doing it. And then the 3rd part is what. So that can be your product, that can be your coaching business or whatever it is. But I think if you skip those first 2 steps, there's no real essence. And that's what I mean by core is knowing who you are and how you're doing what you're doing. So just keeping that in mind, that why, how, and then what.
I really love how you broke that down. It's very simple. The why, the how, and the what. Then speaking of the why, just so that our masterpiece makers who are listening to us can get a little bit of an idea of what you do and why you ended up in this business. You did not start where you are today. Can you take us back a little bit earlier? And I know you have lived in 4 different places and in different countries as well. Can you share to us what shaped your heart for branding design and that led you to this path now?
That's an interesting question because I never really planned on ending up in brand design. I started out as a photographer, so that was always my hobby, and I used to serve in church, taking photos. But in the back of my mind, I always wanted to be an architect. So I always had that in mind, and I'm usually a person that goes and follows through with a plan I have. So I had that in mind, and that was my goal. But then during the years, I noticed I do love being creative with my hands and taking photos and being out there. And I also noticed that architecture might not be 100% what I want to do. And that was honestly just by God's leadership. Ended up in places serving in church where I could be creative in different ways. So that used to be our communications team. And I ended up doing graphic design and just interviewing people. So a lot of different aspects of interacting with people, but also using my creativity. That kind of shaped, just the way I wanted to work. I wanted to work creatively, but also with people. So that combination was very important to me over the years. So I ended up in a job a few years ago where I was able to just work in brand design. And suddenly like everything made sense for me. All those experiences I've had over the years came together in that one job, working with people, asking questions and listening and really understanding that the person opposite me, but also then being able to freely express myself and translate what people are feeling into visuals. And that just got me where I am today.
That's amazing. What I love about our industry, and as a creative professional, as also someone who does branding, I don't know, I really don't know what it is, but we're so passionate about trying to be. I know you also find it probably exhilarating to crack the code, if there's a code, to make sure that what you want to communicate really aligns visually, right? There's that sort of like visual lock that we're looking for, that, I don't know. When people ask me, how do you know that that's how the brand looks like? I don't know. Maybe it's a gut feel,
True.
right? Like maybe it's a gut feel that it looks like that, but also there's certain levels to sort of understand and how the visual and how the copy and how everything works together. Now, you often talk in the story of yours that the importance of alignment in branding. In your experience, and you're really exposed to a lot of European brands, and in your side, what's usually missing when a brand feels off or inauthentic? What are the signs that you're trying to figure out, or that the brand feels off?
I'd say it's clarity. So the overall topic is clarity, and you can break that down into maybe a brand not being clear on what they offer. That's a big deal, but also not being clear about like that. Why is this business even here? Like, why are they doing what they're doing? So usually if I don't have clarity about a brand, that's when it starts to feel off. And I think a lot of people I talk to, even people that want to book branding with me, when they come to me, they always say their biggest problem is clarity. They know what they want to do, but they don't really know what they stand for. And they don't really know how to use fonts, and they don't know how to use colors. So they just do it all. And that ends up in a lot of confusion, and not just for themselves, but also for the one who's looking at the brand. And that to me is like the biggest overall problem, people not being able to be clear on their business. The clarity in itself is a big problem, I'd say.
That's really true, hey. And I experience that a lot. And because we eat like fonts for breakfast, or we know what visuals work, but a lot of our masterpiece maker listening to us, they don't have an eye for this design stuff. Are there any tips that you can give that they can apply when they look at their brand? Because I think the danger as well is that we're so into the brand, we understand fully what is it, we're so biased about it, that you don't, in effect, you have some blind spots. What do you tell your clients when they need to like evaluate their brand without hurting their feelings, of course? What are the telltale signs?
Yeah, I get it. Some people don't have an understanding how creativity works or how fonts work, and that's okay. I don't know a lot too. Like, I need professionals in other areas of my life. So I think just acknowledging at first that you don't know what to do with that topic, that's a big thing. Because a lot of people think, oh, I can do that. That's not hard. I'm just going to use Canva and apply a few fonts. But just at first acknowledging, okay, maybe I don't really know how to use this design thing to make my business work. And then the second thing is also just not looking at what others are doing and just trying to apply it for yourself. Because I see that a lot. People go to Pinterest or Instagram and they just literally copy what someone else is doing because it might look good. So that's a big thing. I'd also say just keep your hands off that, because it's going to lead to an inauthentic look. It's not you. It's not what your brand stands for. And the third thing is also, if you're designing yourself, just keep it simple. Don't use 5 fonts. Don't use too many colors. Like, you can make it look good with a few things. So just reduce it to maybe 2 fonts and pick your 2 favorite colors and not 5. And then work with that. And that's going to just make it look a bit more professional Yeah.
That's so funny that you say that because I exactly know what you mean. Like, man, I think somebody just sees this template on Canva, and of course, these templates are designed by professional designers, right? And they look good as templates, but once they start to apply their own thing, then it looks, huh?
Yeah.
And we love our friends at Canva and Adobe Express, and we thank them for this. But again, I think I would just like to add to what Miri said, that it's an expression. And the most important thing is that your authenticity is really brought out in the brand. Years ago, I started a personal journey to help provide professional creative communication solutions to brands born out of faith and big dreams, but running on limited resources. Before finding my true calling in ministry, I was an advertising professional, and I always felt frustrated whenever a great idea, product, service, or community initiative didn't take off simply because branding wasn't a priority. I've seen too many faith-oriented entrepreneurs and nonprofit leaders make this mistake because they don't have access to professional creative services, or they are put off by the high cost and consumerist approach. I decided to use my experiences in mainstream advertising and in ministry to bridge the gap. The result is a 6-module branding course that can help transform brands, effectively tell their stories, reach their audience, and help them achieve their goals. Teaching this to business owners and leaders, I've seen it transform confusing concepts into real brands that cut through the noise and make real everyday impact. I believe that brands can be a blessing to the world, solving problems and easing burdens, fueled by passion and driven by purpose. That is what we aim to do with Masterpiece Kingdom Brands. If this resonates with you and you're ready to uncover your kingdom brand, let's connect. Sign up for the Masterpiece Kingdom Brand Building course today. Okay, Miri, I know that you are a person of faith, and I think just as what I mentioned in our intro, that I've had the privilege of journeying with you in Cape Town, and you were an intern, and I saw you develop and flourish, and you went to design school and all these things. But I would be really interested to know, because you grew up in a church environment that's very encouraging, and design wise, you were also very exposed to a lot of different design elements and craft in all aspects of what you do church. How difficult or easy it is to actually come from a creative design background in a healthy perspective in a context of church, and then going into like mainstream marketing, which is a whole different chaos. And with all due respect to our schools, because we're exposed into like different kinds of messaging and styles, and sometimes it can be difficult for someone who's really has strong values and conviction. How did you manage that transition? Were you shocked or what? And how did you navigate that when you realized that, oh, the world is a little bit crazy here?
Yeah, it's interesting because I was really blessed to be in a great small agency that was also very encouraging. And I'm so grateful for those girls because it was more like an extended, encouraging environment for me. So it was like a soft start into the world out there. But I did notice when I started to get clients that don't really represent my faith or don't really stand for what I'd say I stand for, that it started to give me a little nudge to understand, okay, there's a lot of stuff out there that's not how I'm used to do like things and how I experience things. So it was a bit shocking to me at first, but what I learned from it is that no matter what kind of business you have as a client and what people you run into, everyone's searching for bigger meaning. And through their business and through what they do and how they achieve stuff and how they want to be seen, like it's all just that deep longing for more. And that kind of softened my heart because it doesn't mean that I need to agree with everything my client stands for, but it softens my heart towards understanding that they are all on a journey and I can be a light in this environment instead of just withdrawing from it and just being in my safe little church bubble, I can interact with those people. I can encourage and I can actually be a light in the darkness. And that kind of shifted my mind from just starting to maybe become judgmental towards being more loving and understanding the need behind every person.
I love that. It's so good. That's really good. You open up to understand the deeper need, and instead of repelling them, I think that's what Jesus would do, right? Loving and finding a way to shine some light. Because I've noticed that, especially Christian owned businesses and organizations, they don't normally get the best reputation in the marketplace. I don't know if you noticed that, but hey, like people outside our church bubble, outside our Christian bubble, we are still known to be some sort of like outdated or very inferior and nothing compared to the big brands. That can still apply, that affects us in a way. Faith often really plays a powerful role in how we show up in business. Miri, when you have hard times, when you're doing concepts and when it's a little bit difficult to show up as a business person because you're a freelancer, you're servicing clients one-on-one or even in short periods of time or longer periods of time, it gets crazy, it gets hard. And how does your faith play a role into this? What keeps you going in to improving your craft, your business, and your journey?
Yeah, I think my faith is just the foundation for everything. Sometimes I ask myself how people are freelancers without knowing God because it's tough and it gets tough. So I'd say what I see myself like benefiting from the most is just knowing my identity. My work is part of my calling, but it's not my identity. And that kind of puts off the pressure in times where I feel like things are not working out and there should be more work to do or clients should be nicer. Like it's a shield that protects me, knowing, okay, I'm called, I'm gifted, I'm anointed. And if things don't work out, then maybe it's God's protection as well. So it shifts that whole perspective from it's all up to me towards it's up to God, because that's on his plate. Like he needs to figure it out. And I'm just going to be that faithful steward with what is in my hands right now, whether it be big or small, whether it be dream clients or more like annoying clients. But I can always be a faithful steward with what I have. And that puts the pressure off. And I think that's also why I really ask myself how people do this without God, because it's literally my rock.
I agree 100%. I don't know how you do this thing outside of the grace of God. It's impossible. And I think that's what I love about creative people who have strong faith. And it's not a perfect faith, but it is anchored on our love for Jesus, because it gets crazy and it gets chaotic. At the end of the day, no matter how annoying the client is, we still love the client. And especially the difficult ones, they see the difference. They want to work with you more.
Yeah.
Do you feel the same?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, so I think that's really very important. And in that way, we are shining as ambassadors of the kingdom. And I love what you said, that when you said you're called to do this and your job does not really define who you are, because it's your calling that defines who you are. That's really cool. I think a lot of our masterpiece makers now are probably already thinking about how to kind of revamp their brands in simple ways to just represent themselves no matter where they are on the journey. So, Miri, just as a final thought, for someone listening right now who feels unsure or even after hearing this conversation feels embarrassed about their brand, don't panic, guys. What's the first step that they can take towards clarity?
Yeah, so first of all, don't panic. There's no need. Like, we're all on a journey. And if you're starting to notice, okay, I need to make a few adjustments and I don't really know what I'm doing, like, that's okay. And you're not alone in this. And I think on that note, and to sum it up, what we've just spoken about, your faith and your business, you don't need to compare yourself. You don't need to compare yourself to someone who's been in business for 10 years or 5 years or the same as you. There's no need for comparison because you are called and there's a unique purpose on your life. And that also is true for your business. Your business is unique and it doesn't have to look like someone else's journey. So if you now think, okay, I need to make a few adjustments or I don't really know what I stand for, don't look to the right and don't look to the left, but look at yourself and ask those questions. Maybe ask it in your quiet time with God. Ask him those questions. Okay, God, what do I stand for? What is it that you've placed on my life? And what do you want to do with my business? And just really get to the core we spoke about in the beginning and look at yourself and not to other people, because I know comparison can creep in and it can make you feel like, oh, I'm not as far ahead as everyone else, or I should be like further ahead, but that's not helpful. So just looking at yourself, looking at your identity before God, and that's going to be the core of everything. And it's going to take the pressure off because God created you and God made you the way you are. So there's no need to become someone else who you're not. So I think that's just been very helpful for me to first get back to myself, zoom out, don't look at social media, don't compare yourself, and take your time with God and then just really answer those questions from your heart.
You just nailed it. Come on. So good. This is music to my ears. The masterpiece makers know this. I just love it. I love it. Love it. Thank you so much, Miri. That was such a joy. And I'm sure our masterpiece makers took a lot of it. And this is something that could really change and shift the trajectory of your business. I would love to, if I know our masterpiece makers would love to connect with you and check you out. How can our tribe find you?
Yeah, you can definitely find me on social media, my Instagram and my LinkedIn. I'm quite active on that and sharing a lot of personal thoughts, but also business thoughts on there. So it's just my name, Mirjana Mandl, on social media, or you can just go on my website and you can look at my work there. You can just send me a message if you want to work together. But I also have something new on my website. I have a blog. So I'm going to be sharing more about topics that are close to my heart on my blog. So if you're curious, you can also just check that out.
That's amazing. We're going to put all of those lovely details into our show notes, guys, so you can have access to Mirjana and her amazing stuff. And she also wrote on our Masterpiece Business Community blog there. So we have a feature on her. Just go to masterpiece-business.com and go to our magazine, and then you will find a very insightful article featuring Mirjana there. And yeah, I think that's it for today. Thank you so much, Mirjana, for joining us.
Thank you, Norbert, for having me.
You're very welcome. And thank you, Masterpiece Makers. Until our next episode, remember, on this show, we are obsessed to building your faith and inspiring your business. Until next time, goodbye.